Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. It's Shirley with Spirit of Matter, and today I'm actually going to talk about the Neptune series. So, you know that I have been working on Water Expands Upon Cooling Season 2, addressing also that which is missing and the role of Neptune in both cold cases but in general. And I'm going through my own Neptune square. So I'm only applying to go to my own Neptune square. It will be when Neptune will cross to perfect, when Neptune will cross to Aries. So today I want to talk about the phenomena of people who are better known after their death and the question of when to die. So I'll begin with basically a topic of the question of when to die, because I had history teacher, and she taught us the Second World War in a very particular way. It was, of course, about the resistance during the Nazi regime in France. And she mentioned the question of when to die, because she said if Adolf Hitler would die in 1936, he would be considered one of the greatest leaders of modern times, as he, at least for what people saw, okay, it's not him necessarily, but he managed to bring Germany out of economic crisis post World War One into beginning of prosperity, okay? And then he started doing other things. He didn't want to wield power again to the banking systems and the ruling elite of the banking system, and he had to do democide and genocide in order to get cyanide. Which you won't be told, because you're usually told about the history or the tales of time by the people who are in these secret societies today, and they would need to do similar things to get cyanide. So that's that's only something you need to gather from yourself, the bits and pieces from whistleblowers and survivors of these cults, which are the cults that founded United States, for example. Okay, so it's quite big. So then there is the question of when to die. Okay, because if you bring something to the world, and there are a couple of significations where a person might be bringing something to the world that is not easily entering the world, and that in itself can be mythified. Aries hard aspects to the moon can be one of them. I come from lineage of that. Yod, okay, the Yod aspect, where you have one planet in conjuncting two planets, and the one planet that in conjuncts the two planets has to be the fastest moving, that would be a Yod. And this is also something that comes to bring something to the world with that, and happen to have both of these aspects. And I have to say, they're often mythified, because in retrospect, if we think about these people, if we know about them as, oh, that was an unacknowledged genius of the time. Now, if Aries is actually sextiling moon or trining moon, we would know these people during their lives, but the hard aspect makes it difficult to assimilate into the status quo or into society at large, because of the hard aspect between the moon perspective or the sun to Aries, which is a slow-moving planet that was not included in the discourse. Okay, and when it comes to the Yod, again, for the outer, if it's involving outer planets in particular, we will pay attention to that. That the things might come out and be assimilated only after a person's death. Okay, as a person has a Yod with Chiron in the fourth, being the top of the Yod, or the bottom of the Yod, and that Yod with Neptune and Pluto, is very clear that after death, for house, which is basically also a grave, there would be things that people would reconsider, and that is, again, not because people are particularly more or less genius than others. It's just that it's so difficult to assimilate this perspective that usually only after death or in retrospective people are like, oh damn, they were onto it when they were alive. Yes, they were. And if it's fourth house, it attaches to your housing, sense of personal happiness, upbringing, and so on and so forth. Now the question is why people more known sometimes after the death. So it can be both these aspects. Okay, there's a slower moving planet that affects the timing in which you're absorbed into society. Okay, something would have to make a good aspect with this hard aspect for you to be well received, and that can be very frustrating for the person. It doesn't mean that your ideas are more or less good than ideas of the contemporary time. It just means that you bring in a change that's more difficult to assimilate, and there would be a crisis around the assimilation of this change. So just speaking up, just trying to talk to people can make you feel like, like you're in a weird position where they're having a religious persecution of Groucho Marx. And if you know, Groucho Marx was known for having said the sentence, "If you don't like my opinions, I have other opinions." So oftentimes that can be a lack of dogma around religion, or that can be lack of dogma around something that allows you to look at things more with more flexibility and yield insights that do stand the test of time. Okay, but the relationships with the society can be very frustrating and even quite satirical. So they either persecute you for opinions you didn't express, or they don't get your opinions. They're very, like, in very rare cases, it's actually like you have said something and they actually understood what you said. You just vehemently disagree until a big crisis in their lives happen. And this is a big crisis in humanity when it's Aries, when it is Chiron. Okay, again, you go against the grain of something because it goes against your own grain. Okay, and you have to assimilate something that is not easily reconcilable, if at all, within your own natal chart. So Yod is again one of these placements that could really be annoying, and make people kind of like not really understand what's going on with you, and make you not understand what's going on with you as well. Now, those type of challenges can make a person say, why okay, why am I here? Why am I going through all this? This violates my contract with life itself. Why didn't I die yet? Okay, and then there's the question of Neptune. In many charts of people that you know more after their death, you see very high significance of either the 12th house, Pisces, Neptune, or Placidus, or whole sign, all of the above. And that has to do with the way Neptune works. Neptune is where you manifest that which isn't there in magical ways and experience miracles. The timing of the miracle and the way in which it comes is something you have to completely surrender. Okay? Working with Neptune, again, while talismanically maybe you can induce like dreams and stuff. I'm still waiting for my Neptune talisman that went missing in the mail, so to pop up, and it very likely will pop up, but it will pop up in its own time and space, and miraculously, very likely. That's Neptune. That's that which is missing. Neptune is also that which is mythical. Okay, it creates a gap of existence between the timelines of where you are and where your desires. It is the planet that gets people to Abraham Hicks, but it's also the planets that gets people to why my manifestation's not working. If it's the vortex and it's within me and it's already happened. That because with Neptune you have to surrender things. So if you want to take it back to before I was doing astrology videos and I was giving tips for manifestations, then and I talked about why are some things taking longer to manifest. So some of it can be like Saturn, where you have to put in a lot of time and dedication. It's accumulating karma. And again, manifesting is not like feeling something, thinking something. It's just like creating something, basically, in spirit and in matter. And Neptune is again one of these planets, a very manifesting planet. In fact, the 12th degree, the Piscean degree, is also the Neptunian degree. And I do join Neptune to the meaning of Pisces, and it was true also when Neptune was in Aquarius. Okay, so that's something kind of like to keep in mind. Of course, Pisces make extra Pisces, but Neptune is going to operate this way pretty much in every sign. Okay, and so it tends to be the place where you really have to surrender your manifestation or even your ability to dream. That is, or even your ability to set intentions and times. Okay, having lived through Neptune in my 12th house when Neptune was in Aquarius, I can say that literally no modality of treating mental health crisis was working for me. I had to completely surrender that because nobody freaking understood, whether it was pills, whether it was advice, whether it was Jupiterian advices. When I'm survivor of sexual boundary violation, it's Venusian, okay, you need validation, you're not imagining, and you need resources, okay, housing, food, and stuff like that. So I met people that try to tackle that with Jupiterianism. They are not inside their body. Okay, it is not inside the body. Still, doesn't mean that the Jupiter did not do good things for their life, but when Venus, you need the Venus. Okay, it's a different perspective. You need to embrace and integrate the Venusian into your life and the lunar into your life, because the core of the trauma is that Venusian was not integrated within the life of the offender, and that's what made them fucked up like this. Okay. No judgment, but it's kind of frustrating anyway. So this is a kind of an example how Neptune can go through a house and basically you are longing for the meaning of that house. So you could be taking responsibility, let's say 12th house, so your mental health is like, I'm going to this doctor, to that doctor, to this person, to this person, to this person, and I'm taking responsibility, but I cannot actually do what they tell me to do. Or I can do it in a very limited way and it doesn't yield the results that I want, that we're expecting it to yield, and then they're just let down of you, which increases the overall sense of suffering. I don't know why did I live through that and survived, okay? Like, I really don't know why. But that's simply kind of the universe. And we had enough of 27 Club. We had enough of people who didn't live through the Neptune, through the 12th years. You're meant to survive that. And you're meant to bring something new to healing modalities, whether as a testimonial or knowledge from experience. And indeed, knowledge from experience was growing as I was growing to like think, why the fuck am I alive? So that was very, very challenging times you can imagine. And most of the suffering, the most difficult things are basically your 12 houses, nobody knows. Okay, so you also don't come off as a person who needs to be tended. It just has both the pros and cons of invisibility, okay? So Yeah, it's that person they were fucking up with. Yes, it's true. So when a planet comes out of your 12th, then basically it is becoming visible again, or so visible that is in the first house of the body. And now I'm going through Neptune through the first house, which I must say has a lot of, like, it has a lot of pros, um, and it has some significant challenges. So for a person that is highly Neptunian, their manifestation takes such a timeline that to persevere through that um, is something that they literally have to surrender. Okay? When you want to die and you know that there exists assisted suicide for you, not talking about later, okay, and it's not available for various reasons, even bureaucratic reasons, or you're so traumatized from the system that you don't, okay. I have to admit, just yesterday, I was checking again about assisted suicide in the Netherlands. It is related to the Ministry of Justice that you all know is related to those things that just like, okay. So sometimes, like, hey, that was not fulfilled, but you wouldn't want it to be fulfilled in that setting either. And so that is not easy. But the fact that the people are known after death is simply the fact that you need to surrender Neptune things, and Neptune gives you the longing to something, and you hold the point of attraction or a point of manifestation that's so strong that you hold it with your life. And sometimes when you die, you release that into concrete reality within the timeline of Neptune. And the thing with Neptune is that, yes, we are approaching the Neptune-Saturn conjunction. It's surrendering death. And that is, it's a good thing to dissolve the momentum or recalls, which is in line with Pluto and Aquarius. But that is something that coming to terms with when literally the contract that you made with life has been violated and you're helpless around this. It's not about the person or society, or this is just your human experience. And sometimes that very thing is what you come to manifest, a realization of that, and essentially the known after death type of thing here means your holding point of attraction, where you might not live to see the full fruition, okay, of that. So depending where Neptune falls in your chart, it to me it falls in the 11th house of goals and dreams. And it can be that those might be fully manifested, or even can be that I don't remember, or the things that I created went missing, or and I don't even have the power to do anything about that. And yes, that Neptune's next to my midheaven, and so nor do I have the power to say, okay, but this time I stop, or this time this, or this. Just like something happens. So Neptune is also pertaining to the lives and charts of people who there's mystery around their leaving or departing the world, or mystery around whether they are alive or not. And I said there's no such thing as suicide, and this is true. Um, And sometimes that notion is a part of what you came here, a realization you came here to manifest. Neptune, when Neptune does yield, it tends to be either very miraculous, ethereal, or also viral. Okay, especially if you have Neptune in the 10th house. So you're known in your absence. Very likely you're known in your absence. I have to admit that there are various forms of known in your absence. One of them is where a person is either performing or they're supposedly there, but they're not there. So, the challenge of being safe and free in the body. And again, Neptune would go beyond. It's not about blame or blame shifting. It just pays attention to the human experience altogether. And it would not yield the modalities where this person in their lifetime could be fully helped within that which that Neptune is related to. Okay. So Neptune is dreamlike, Neptune is creative. Even when you want to take responsibility, you're like, oh, I'm going to work direct with Neptune, bring a talisman of Neptune. Then you need Neptune also will something which is missing, so that talisman will missing, and then it will pop up. You're still working with it, okay? Still, when you order something, when you do, okay, you take steps, you set intention. Intentions are big with the outer planet, but the physical manifestation, you have to surrender this. I have to admit, when you talk about movie or film industry, and it's something I knew since childhood, that film industry, you can write a movie. So many people are involved with them with the production of movies. You really like blend into the mass of people that are involved in this production. That, and you don't know, you have to surrender of whether that movie will even finish the editing line, the final cut, and so on. That's also related to astrology. So, for example, there were a lot of people, when I did Spirit of Matter, people were like, wow, you're so consistent, you're so inspiring, you're so consistent. It was like, you have no idea how I had been going through the entire surrounding, not really like almost losing the value in me, or like I was saying, okay, you get a lot of potential, but you're not doing anything about that, and difficulty to have passion to do something. While here is something that I surrender to. Okay, it just happens. And even then, it feels, you can see, very isolated, and even so much so that the energy to do like SEOing or stuff is not there, and even if it's knowing that the timing for these words, okay, the timing for these words could very well make them disappear if they meet a large crowd, because that I would be shadow banned, or something would happen to the channel or to me, and so on. So again, with Neptune, you also surrender like your, if it's, let's say, 10th house related, or 11th house related, you literally surrender your goals and dreams, and surrender your life mission, sometimes your life direction. Okay, it's really, really Piscean energy, and there's nothing like it. It was so when it was the 12th house, it was so when it was the 11th house, and indeed I was born with Neptune 1 degree Capricorn. Anything to do with like social groups, goals and dreams, yeah, I had to kind of like complete a surrender. It also tends to bring in for things to pop up fatally and you're not being able to ignore them. Okay, I was 12 years old when I said I'm going to stop my dream of tending to criminal law. And look what I'm tending to, okay, without degree, without certification, just exposing the corruption. It's just like it came to me. Um, and it came to me as I am 40, okay? So during my Neptune square, so like I was not expecting that. But Neptune will also not let you give up on your dreams. It's just happening in a very weird and bizarre way where you surrender your dreams, totally unable to do anything about it, and then totally unable to do anything about the fact that you're doing something about this. Okay, you have no idea how many times I was asked about work as I was working on my business, and the one woman that protected me had later, I think, cancer in the throat. After which I was left homeless, and then I went through the trauma of homelessness, difficulty to defend my boundaries, suffering that I cannot explain to you because you don't have the epistemic standards for empiricism to understand, and not the healing modalities to deal with. Although they already exist in the world, you just don't practice them. That's housing first and open dialogue. And also traveling, okay? Traveling is very important to heal from mental issue, even if you do, like me, have planets in the ninth house that are like Saturn, Pluto, Mars, 22 Mars, okay? Is still important. Not by force, but is to have the access to is very important. And so I literally have the ruler of my 12th house in the ninth house. Okay, so academic studies was something that was remediatory for me. It also brought me to the Me Too, which was exposing the hermaphrodite cults in retrospective. That's in Neptune time from the Me, from 2007 when I first encountered that by a musician who was hiding in between himself and suffered tremendously because of that. It's also being the person who is very aware that you have to tend to your dreams, while not necessarily always being able to do that yourself, and not necessarily being able to do anything other than that. Okay, the role of work, Placidus Neptune would be in my 10th house, and I try to take the security job, the safety job, until that, and that I became so sick. And it's not even suicidal because I couldn't really do anything about it. The point is basically to dissolve from suffering, and even went so much and tried to tend to the near-death experience, which I kind of halfway manifested. And because I realized that the desire is basically to reach to that love buffer. And you can see as I was walking out of Itamar Yaron, which is basically the They Don't Know What's energy, it's not just because of him, okay? It's just one person in a really corrupt system that also has scientific advancement to go through and social advancement to go through, in order to be able to accommodate for me in a very level of housing Chiron, perceptions around mental health, the importance of manifestations of dreams and tending to your dreams, but also the ability to have resources and the time where you are not able to tend to your dreams in healing modalities that really don't exist in the world. Okay, and even when you talk about birthing, and you saw me, my email is literally made to love magic one @gmail.com. It's just the song of Nick Drake. Even when, and funnily enough, I'm doing astrological magic now as well. So, but the funny thing is that I heard channeling of Nick Drake. Is, by the way, if you like his music or if you like musicians, he was encouraging people. It's not my channeling. He was encouraging people to get their muscle memory and channel this from artists. Um, and he said it. He likes it when people make his renditions of his music, and he like make it your own. Like he likes it. It's something that he continue to make contact with the artists even when they're dead. Um, so, and he has a couple of, I think he has he has a stellium in Gemini, which is my fourth house. So this was like the only healing method that I have, is to put an 8 Drake song sometimes. And he was talking about healing modalities to do with a lot of Aquarian stuff, okay, wave frequencies, sound waves, but also healing modalities to do with the birthings and birth and birthing. Um, and the fact that the birthing of baby and the experience of the baby inside the womb of the mother is so important, that is basically from Nick Drake. I know about these things. It's like it's common sense, but the fact that it had caused him depression so much so that he ended his life, and the mother was in depression when he was okay, when she was pregnant with him. Um, so that is something that's important, but it's also something that people surrender. It's like I've worked with Tamamundi. It was created as a birthing talisman by a person that her birth story eventually was downright chilling. I mean, like, yeah, she talks about in her own page, but it was kind of like, hey, you can do the tema mundi, and there's still things you need to surrender. So and this is also because there is the context of the spirit of the time. Okay, you could do things that really are in the line of what you should be doing, like labor and make sure that if you have a business, you have the best labor condition for both you and your employees, sixth house, and so on. It's like some people do that and still, but it's also because the hermaphrodite cults and the overall zeitgeist is not embracing both the feminine, masculine, Venusian, gender fluid, gender non-conforming, adjectives, all these things that we try to control for, things that are natural. Hermaphrodite, which is basically androgynous person, is something that's naturally occurring in nature. We don't need to do anything to create that, okay? But the fact that people rape and torture to create that, and I went through sexual boundary violation myself because of somebody was thinking that I can change the mindset around my sexual inclinations, and that's basically the type of abuse that was not on that level, fortunately, but it was enough to set me off for 2 decades of like, hey, I wasn't really well to begin with. Now that's not really improving. And that was what they do, the sex espionage. Is basically they rape them so that they will be able to have sex without feelings. I have to admit that as a natural whistleblower, it is actually being attuned and connecting with people that very likely the people that would have astral sex or something like that, their secrets would leak, not because I bring it in, not because I'm a spy, but because it's kind of like the wish to get to know a person is to fall in love with screenwriting, um, and the part of being in that connection is an energy connection. We begin to be exposed to things about this person. It's to just begin to know things, okay, and begin to blend, and that's the whistleblowing, that's the leaking, that's also the fated encounter that is supposed to bring something new to the world, whether it's knowing that public leaders are the expendable children grown, so business people, and if you want like the hot juice details, I don't have them because I don't always understand what is going on. So and have to work very hard to preserve my sexual boundaries, okay? So all these things that are naturally occurring when the are beneficial to humanity, they try to create with rape, with assault, with torture, and that it doesn't get you the truth. It doesn't get you the truth. It makes everybody suffers, and then everybody's kind of like a victim of that. And victimhood is addiction, helplessness, chronic fatigue is something that's very associated with Neptune. People talk about alcoholism, okay, but not just, okay. And this is just because of the lack of connection and isolation, okay? It's not because person is not wanting to take responsibility over themselves or whatnot. I remember when I tried the horror time, when I tried, I so deeply repent that after the Me Too, when they go like, the distinction between responsibility and shame, kind of like it didn't make any sense, but I was like, okay, let's try it. And I've perpetuated suffering for me and my surroundings so big. It's like I was literally assaulted by a spy, and then like what responsibility? Like, they had no place to go to, and I also had no place to go to because there was MK Ultra, and then the psychologist Dita Mayon was also MK Ultra. So I was like, okay, what are you gonna do now? Okay, and nobody knows what's energy. You can't explain this to people because this is really fucking ethereal. And when you live inside society, which is kind of like Arbeit macht frei, but they're Jews, you're living in a satire. I literally made an artistic satire of a comment discussing the politics of grants to artists in the Netherlands. Which may have overwhelmed some political figures. But I just said, okay, if the grants are used to grow and extort children and rape and torture them so that they will be sex espionages, and the politicians don't want to legalize pedophilia to get away from being extorted, because they are also the expendable children, then essentially the other thing that's left is basically to cut the budget for art. So you won't have budget to create sex espionages. It's basically how you create artists. It's not grants that are given to you. Like, you won't get a grant for like being an artist in a lesson. It's not how it works. And I know that because I was not housed, because I could not be an officer, which is what I said. I could not be an officer. Okay. So, and I was painting a lot because my Taurus sun becomes the 5th house for the relocational chart, and I have Venus there, so I was painting every day. But I also thought I'm going to die every day, which was not a false belief. Every day could be my last there. I was ruled by Saturn there, which is totally humbling experience. I wish you not. Like, you don't have to be ruled by Saturn if you're not born into it. So then again, you see, Neptune is given this quality where something is isolated, something is ethereal, something is foggy, something is missing, but also something is miraculously manifesting. Okay, some miracles happen, some creation is born to life, and because of the sense of that which is missing, that can be very, very fated events that take Neptune time to heal. And Neptune type of healing, so you could be having a sudden I recently began to have like sudden energies, so sometimes are healing for me, but also going so much so as difficulty to receive energies because of the traumas that I've undergone. It's kind of like when they can't recruit you, they try to force it on you. Think that you like, maybe you'll be, I don't know, whatever. And that's just Neptune doing Neptune. So I'm saying that for people who look at those Neptunian cases, that person was only known after their death. That person was known in their absence. Then you also surrender what you're known by, which is annoying. Okay. And and that's just a facet of life. um, and also, if you have this in your chart, that might be something you're working with, unless you're bringing certain um, healing to that. To me, that Neptune is in a yod, um, and that is it's also creating a less dominant aspect with Aries, but the moon is hard aspect in Aries, is squaring Aries. So the conjoining of that can give for really weird experiences, but also really fascinating ones. Neptune magically brings something out of nothing, okay? And um, and perhaps it's setting the tone, setting the stage that with the great things that we achieve in society, they come through the outer planets, and so at least to reflects in our mind um, around the idea that we can be more accommodating, and when we build our structure models, our city models, um, our housing accommodation, our employment perception, how we treat the people who are, let's say, homeless or need resources. Like, perhaps we could be a bit more accommodating for the Neptunian experience in our lives, because it really is something that people surrender. Neptune is also the misdiagnosed disease, by the way. I do think a person doesn't have to be a disease to be included in society. That's a part of, like, that's something to consider. And no, it doesn't work with the banking models. And if, for example, right now in this day and age, we have the problem of corruption, okay, not just expandable children, but the extortion around rape and torture and murder, and like, even if you got successful in something, it can be entrepreneur. Neptune can also be the type of business which is about liquidating assets. Neptune can give great wealth. There's a sense of surrender with that. Grand vision, a sense of surrender with that. So this is a part of, and it's challenging to accommodate because it challenges the notion of the spirit of the time. That's what makes it advanced. And yet Neptune wants to connect as well, but also to isolate. So there's a lot of dissonances around this. In some cases, it can be very remediatory, okay? Like when I say, when in doubt, when nothing really helps, and I put on a Nick Drake song or something like that. And you just become one with death, and that somehow heals you. But this is like really, I don't know. It's a challenging thing. And yeah, I guess it can bring tremendous blessings. Okay, blessings beyond belief. And it also brings things that are difficult to handle at given times. So that's just, Neptune be Neptune. And this would tell you a lot about the stories, not just of others, but if you have such significations, or even ruler of the 12 associated with your public houses, it can give you Neptunian quality to surrender this, surrender that, and so on. But you also manifest, and you might you might need this video. Okay, this video might come in handy because there might not be ability for you to process what you're going through. We all have Neptune somewhere in our chart. When it's particularly emphasized in a natal chart, like conjuncting your midheaven or in a public house, or ruling, co-ruling your ascendant, okay, or transiting the first house, like Pisces ascendant now, but Aries ascendant next. Even astrology is something like rectification. You have to surrender because you have to talk about traumatic things. You don't have the dates and you don't have the ability to talk about these. You don't always remember. Okay, so that is just and channeling as well, because surrendering nature to that, which might mean you're not going to always be able to channel and so on. It does challenge every facet of a human existence, and you might find this video something that, hey, nobody freaking talks about this. Nobody talks about it from the experience of carrying that timestamp. And now you do have, bless you, my mother sneezed on that, which in my culture means true. The fact is that you might not find this video for a while because it's been so isolated. But if you do, it might be even a miracle to you, because hardly anybody, although astrologers should be feel like it's Neptune is one of the signatures of astrology, so which is why I think standardization of astrology is kind of like, yeah, let's just create the 27 club artificially, and then what's left of it is basically going to elude people more than help them, and that will be the characteristics, like it would be considered worse than co-work sciences, but that is not necessarily something the community itself is like, they're trying to accommodate for what? For Pluto going through the sign of astrology and removing the secret societies cults that try to control the knowledge of astrology and what it can do in life. Like, what is your issue? Okay, what you're trying to do with the Saturn is basically creating an Alice in Wonderland where nobody necessarily is forcing you, unless you're already caught up in these death cults, which you can manifest to come out of, and you have to surrender it as well. As then Neptune is also the dream state. So this video might be really, really vital for you to understand your experience. If you're astrologer and you likely are also channeling and feeling energies, whatever place you give it in your own practice, then and you also surrender your working time. Okay, there's only so many readings you can do. That's pretty fucking expensive, and then it's like, oh, who do you think you are? Da 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 da. And it's kind of like with painters. Who do you think you are to charge this? Da 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 da. It's like, yeah, that Van Gogh also didn't manage to sell their paintings. It's like, what do you want to say with that? Oh, you think you are so and so. You think you are so. You bring in something from another timeline that's difficult to assimilate, and it's that what makes it difficult. But it's also that what, the passage of time makes you great. You just might not even see it yourself. And the people who may see that might also go through Neptunian experiences with you, okay, where they let down, or this or that, because there's something that wants to connect, but has to surrender the ability to do so at any given time, much like Pisces. So I hope that we get that. I hope that understanding that we might be able to begin to accommodate for the Neptunian experience. And I hope that when we get that, the Neptunian is also associated with addiction, but also with espionage and surrendering. Yes, and and what's being done to artists. Why so many politicians were like actors and musicians and this and that, like they started there, but then they were going for that direction, or to stay into that direction. It's like all of them went to intense abuse that nobody even sees. Okay, if I was not tending to political assassination, which I turned it from the Pluto side, it's kind of like so highly Neptunian, then I would not know that our politicians are expendable children too, and the survivors of expendable children don't know that the politicians are also survivors, and they've encountered them like people have encountered them in Brussels. Okay, so that's something that crushed my spirit, but also made me understand a lot of what we're going through in the world. It's very difficult to explain that to people, and you kind of feel like helpless. It drains your spirit, and it's challenging to accommodate even in your own psyche. I was like, oh, that may explain why I wasn't even able to move towards success further in whatever Neptunian endeavor I was doing, by the way, including astrology. So so while you may understand that perhaps you're more successful than you thought given the circumstances, very difficult to bridge it to yourself, definitely to other people. With Neptune, we may see a person as failure or an addict. And then when I was sleeping in the room with a heroin addict, and they were like the most militant discipline I've ever seen. I was like, I understand what they're addict, because they're just so fucking disciplined and hardworking that they don't have the ability to stand the stress, and they are needing to take the drug to contain it. And if that's not enough, they're also the person that everybody turns to when they need, somebody who listens. So that was like, whoa. And yet my mint essential oil that I was working for myself suddenly made them smell in the nostril where they were, sniffing the heroin, cocaine, whatever. Talk about Neptune, okay? And by the way, there were security person for Red Lights District, and had to do sex work later to get like the drug. So again, kids, like that's not your ideal vision of an addict. Okay, it's like if you're trying to say something about people who have drug addiction or something like that, it's not like it doesn't stand in the standards that you would hold for them. And not only that, they tried to quit themselves, so when they needed just water with sugar, the door was closed and nobody was willing to open that. Then they got COVID. They were locked down for 10 days. They managed to get a little bit out of the drug, and then they came back. It's like, really, if you think about, well, take responsibility of your life, nobody's coming to save you, all that, they were doing all that. And I was just watching it. I'm like, wow. I never had like stigma about addicted people, because I didn't know addicted people, and I knew that addiction has to do with connection, isolation, and so on. But that was kind of like, that was not like that. That was not, what the fuck was I seeing that entire society is missing about people who have addiction? So that is also Neptune. Well, anyway, I hope that the video, helped someone other than me. And that's just thoughts around my preceding my Neptune square. So, and I have to admit, you also surrender for what you're manifesting, which is another facet of Neptune. It's just that. You surrender your ability to surrender as well. Yeah. Compassion is one thing about Neptune, I have to say, there's this thing that accidentally was hearing to my father, where people talk about self-pity, and the fact that self-pity actually needed is actually self-compassion that allows you to heal and love yourself. So like we really got everything Neptune wrong in society, is all I gotta say. So yeah, and all these things that people try to put people through trauma for to get like psychic abilities, like you just sit with nature. I don't know. Allow people to have time to retreat to nature. It will naturally happen. It's natural. Children naturally observe that. It's just like don't kill the childhood of children. It will naturally happen. So yeah, and it will also bring great wealth. So what can I say? Thank you for watching.